Welcome to the Learner Friend with myself, Advocate Aurelia Shopsile Ngumalo.
An advocate, Ritabile Siema.
So we would not be legal practitioners if we did not caution you and highlight our disclaimer at the beginning of the episode and at the end of the episode. So please note that this is a platform is for information and educational purposes only, and it does not constitute as legal advice and does not establish an attorney-client relationship.
Perfect. So what is the Learned Friend? So essentially, the Learned Friend is a platform where we'll be extracting and taking snapshots of all the weekly top social media stories and news that we think have got legal implications and have got interesting legal nuances that we'd like to dissect and have a conversation about.
Yeah.
And why did we title our platform The Learned Friend? Well, essentially, the Learned Friend is a way that we as legal practitioners acknowledge and greet each other. You know, it's a way of saying, hey, I recognize you because you recognize me. And we build a community in that way. So the Learned Friend platform is essentially extending that community to you via the conversations we'll be having. So welcome, and we're very excited to have you join us.
We can't wait to hear from you guys.
Oh, definitely. And with that said, let's jump right into our first legal story. The first topic for today pertains to essential services and a controversial post by one of South Africa's celebrity chefs.
So this one celebrity chef tweeted that she would be delivering food to a family member. So in the back and forth of that, with another Twitter user, this then reached the CIPC, who then responded to her tweet and said that prepared food is not an essential service and that delivery is only allowed for essential products and services. So they took it further and revoked her certificate live on Twitter. It is important.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she put up the post on a social media platform, so now the revocation happened live on a social media platform.
Exactly. And then the discussion was about how unprofessional it is, but like that's a story for another day. So I think if you have the certificate, it's the onus is on the business owners to make sure that they are compliant with the latest regulations for trading during lockdown, you know? So it does put all the pressure on you, the holder.
Yes. I think that also makes sense, Aurelia, because in order to be a holder of that certificate, it's a voluntary process. So you approach the IPC to be a holder, so the onus will be on you to be compliant. But I think with this particular case study, we're seeing how maybe people are not really understanding what essential services are or what an essential services worker is. And I mean, when we delve right into the provisions pertaining to this regulation, it tells us that it's an enterprise that is producing, distributing, or selling any sort of goods or services that are of a critical maintenance. So with our celebrity chef, was she actually understanding what the provisions were saying? Because one could, positively argue that she didn't abide by the provisions.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, what I did appreciate about it is that it did then open up another discussion around the prepared food. So, I mean, you would walk into your grocery stores, your Pick and Pay, your Woolies, your Checkers, and Spar, and there's hot prepared food. That was before. So after the next day, there was no longer hot prepared food at any of these stores. So it's
But that's quite tricky because I walk into my closest W store, and yes, there isn't any hot prepared foods, but I can still open up the plastic glass fridge and pull out my macaroni and cheese and my bolognese, get back home and pop it into the microwave. So that is still a prepared food, right? So yes, it's not uncooked, it's not frozen. So how does that then speak to this particular case study?
Yeah, no, it's a tricky again. I mean, like definitely like, and that's the thing with like law and regulation. So especially in times that every day is trial and error. So business owners must always be mindful that there are consequences of registering as an essential service. So maybe, I mean, we can debate it. It could be a different story if she had used an Uber, which is an essential service right now, and not delivered. I think what was also, I mean, through her tweet, it sounded like she delivered herself, you know?
Yes, and it sounded like she was legitimizing the delivery because she had a permit.
Yes.
And that then tells us that you're not actually understanding what the permit means.
Exactly. So
and I think another thing that you said is, as much as these are unprecedented times, the law is not unprecedented. It's black and white. It's not flexible.
yeah,
It's quite rigid, and a person needs to make sure that they are adhering to the law to the T.
yeah. And I think it also, then with understanding the law, it's then the new amendment. So it's still the onus is on the holder, the business owners,
Yes.
pick the new amendments. If you had a certificate in the first 21 days of the lockdown, it's no longer valid.
Yeah.
You have to go get a new certificate for the extension, So
Yes.
keep abreast of all the amendments
and
just
and
actually. So where you do how far your permit goes, so that you don't find yourself trading illegally.
Yeah. That's our biggest caution, our biggest message to anybody that is holding that certificate or has the intention to actually make sure that whatever it is that you're procuring is going to fall within the parameters of the
Absolutely.
provision.
And I just love what that they've now also extended the categories, and I suspect they still going to extend or relax certain laws. If you're going to go and get the certificate and still want to work during this time, just always keep abreast of any sort of amendment. Every hour there could be an amendment. You must be there with them.
Definitely. Keep up to date with the amendments. We've seen that now mine workers are partially being allowed back into that sector. Plumbers, electricians, our stakeholders from the diesel and petroleum fields also allowed back to work. Certain people from certain call centers are also being allowed. I don't know how that speaks to the social distancing principle. I think it's good for our economy, but I still don't know how it speaks to the whole social distancing principle.
All trial and error. We're all sitting here.
I guess so.
That mouthful on prepared food.
Nom nom.
Nom nom, yeah. Into our second topic, the government's ban on alcohol sales as part of the regulations has been a major talking point daily. I think in line with the Disaster Management Act, which states that the sale of alcohol can also be suspended or limited once a state of disaster has been declared.
I think this topic around alcohol is a big one because it perfectly ties into our first topic. And the only thing I want to say about that is that prepared foods, cigarettes, and alcohol still are not part of essential services insofar as procuring them and selling them. And I thought it was quite interesting. I don't know if you caught the story pertaining to the Gauteng Liquor Forum last week, where they essentially, gave our president a threat and basically told him that should he fail to relax the current alcohol bans, that they'd be filing a civil suit with the Constitutional Court. And I perused through the letter, and what was most interesting for me, Aurelia, is how basically it seemed like the Tarvin and the Shebeen holders via their legal representative could not understand how them procuring and selling alcohol was speaking to this COVID reality. They couldn't understand where the nexus was, where the link was.
Yeah.
And in no time later than that, we saw the World Health Organization actually releasing a recommendation that spoke perfectly. That recommendation perfectly established the nexus between the selling of alcohol and the COVID-19 virus. Basically, the key point of that recommendation was that the consumption of alcohol was associated with a number of communicable and non-communicable diseases in making the human body vulnerable to contracting the COVID-19 virus. And so essentially the recommendation was for governments worldwide to limit the access of alcohol.
And I do believe that alcohol has the potential to also just exacerbate mental health issues, risky behavior, and just and we all know liquid courage. So it's under the current practice of social distancing in that has been implemented in South Africa, you don't want to find yourself in that situation where now you are trying to keep and save lives, keep everybody safe and save lives, and then having to deal with a drunk person as well.
No, you don't need that. And I think kudos to our president for being so proactive, because by him just, sticking, I mean, at the end of the day, he said no. He said no to their threats. He stuck by his guns. And I love the fact that he's very proactive, because by just saying no to alcohol, restricting access, he's actually speaking to so many other societal issues that we see in South Africa, one being gender-based violence, the high numbers of accidents, all of that. And all those stats have actually come down.
Yeah, and I think, like, especially with the health workers, they are so under pressure already.
You don't need other issues
of any accidents or any cases that they have to deal with, which emanate from alcohol or alcohol.
Yeah.
So I think kudos to him. I can imagine. I mean, it's only he's under immense pressure, and I think just as South Africans, let's play our part, and not. I mean, we shouldn't be fighting those things right now. So let's just play our part at home and stay safe. And stay safe.
And stay away from making any homemade concoctions.
Yeah.
Pineapple stuff.
Ale.
Please.
So while we're staying at home, I think it's also very important, and we understand everyone's frustrated. This is also just unprecedented time. That's not normal. This is our new normal. We're all just really, really frustrated. And sometimes we don't need to tweet our frustrations and our ill thoughts, So I think with that said, there was, we saw a tweet by a CA who is also a member of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. So she had tweeted that, hey, these new Woolies shoppers are annoying. Woolies is definitely cheaper than you guys think. Yeah, but my figures over the years, they had to align. Very. They had to align their prices. So Woolies is no longer a high-end food retailer.
Wow.
Drops mic.
So what happened? How was that received?
Not well, of course. I mean, it was obviously escalated by Twitter, and they needed her to feel the full extent of their anger.
Yes.
Went to the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, and then they responded and like, yeah, we are aware of her tweets. We've been monitoring, and we're like, whoa. We then became privy to the important principles from the social media guidelines. It went. She could have never anticipated how far it went, but that's how far, it was taken. So she could have probably just texted that thought to end.
I think for me, my biggest takeaway is whether the tweet was offensive or not, this young lady had actually bound herself to the social media policies of SAICA. And by her tweeting those tweets, her tweets basically, or the sentiments carried in those tweets were falling outside the parameters of the legal document that she had signed and actually consented to. And therein lies our issue with not being social media savvy and smart.
Not really being social, you consent to stuff. You should always be aware of what you're consenting to. So if you're going to put up on your bio that you're a CA member,
we're going to hold you to those standards and those principles. Absolutely. And more than we as just laymen looking at your tweets, SAICA, the particular association, is also bound to actually make sure that they hold you accountable.
Because yes, especially when they do have a social media guideline. So if you sign into that profession, abide. Remember, even if you signed 20 years ago, it still remains.
Definitely. Abide.
Yeah. So just remember to tweet responsibly, post. If you really need to get it out of the system, send it to your friend.
I actually wish the cotton bud guy had actually seen the segment, our first episode, because then maybe he wouldn't have felt quite okay with spreading fake news. I don't know if you saw that story, that video that was posted last week.
But then we also wouldn't have content if he didn't do it. So, good.
So, okay. Yeah, all right. Thank you. Okay, thanks. So essentially, this guy thought it was okay to warn us as South African citizens, telling us that the testing kits that the government would be using were already contaminated with virus. And I don't have to go quite far. Literally the next day, he was arrested and charged in terms of Regulation 15.1 of the Disaster Management Act for publishing fake news, you know? And as we know, that particular charge carries, a sentence of 6 months if a person is found guilty of the offense.
And then now you're exposing yourself to the very COVID that you were trying to warn us.
A high virus zone, you know?
Yeah.
So much for that.
Yeah, so I did see that video, but I mean, I think I quickly discarded it because, again, like I think we've been speaking, I'm very, very wary of what I'm consuming.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's what everybody needs to practice. Just be very wary of what you're consuming and what you are sharing as well, because in sharing that as well, you could also now be putting yourself in a difficult position, or putting yourself you could be disseminating fake news. So just be very, very wary. And yeah, that guy Shem now is arrested.
That's not the way to go. And I mean, you're a businessman. You've left now this digital footprint. We know you, I'm sure, internationally now. And our biggest caution to everybody is, please, tweet-wise, use your social media platforms in a responsible way.
Even if it's convincing,
don't do it. And I mean, there was no evidence. He basically felt okay with like sticking a cotton bud right up to his brain, and he had no evidence. So that's a huge problem. So guys, don't do that.
Huge problem, because again, when I remember we were talking about it, and I was like, so the cotton bud, is that the one they use, or
that is the one? that's it. That's the swab.
Yeah, so anyway, guys, again, with all the information that we're being fed daily, please just do your own due diligence and make sure it's from a credible source. And before you publish it, before you send it to someone, or before you even speak on it with authority, just make sure it's a credible source and you are consuming something that is the correct information. So be tech savvy, be social media savvy, and just be responsible in what you're doing. Yeah.
Definitely. So guys, thank you so much for joining us on our first episode. We are so excited to have you guys joining us on this journey, and please engage us.
And we really like this. We want to do it weekly. It's also great to get dressed up and still be working and chat and share information with you. So thank you so much. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and you can engage us, and we are here waiting to be engaged by you.
Definitely share any topics that you want us to touch on. Ask us questions. If you don't agree with us on any particular matter where you feel we could have erred, we are welcoming any sort of robust debate. We love debates. And yeah, we can't wait. We can't wait for the interaction. And from us, remember to be social media savvy and smart.
Yeah.